Well, good day viewers. Today we have a 2004 Tundra. It's here for a couple of problems. Let's start this thing up. Note the oil pressure gauge. Doesn't move. The other problem is the four-wheel drive doesn't work. When I select four-wheel drive, the 4 low and 4 high lights blink. And I'm going to plug my scan tool in. I've already plugged it in, but I see that it's not powered up, so there must be no power at the DLC down there. So I got to check the fuse to start with. I don't think this four-wheel drive system is scannable, if I remember correctly. I think this can be a pain in the ass to diagnose. I've got the vehicle running, I got the scanner hooked up. Attempting automatic ID, probably won't be able to. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Well, let's see what codes are in the engine. Four-wheel drive system is computer controlled, but it's the dumb computer. Catalyst efficiency and evap small leak. Those are not related to my problem. Well, while we're in there, let's see if there's oil pressure data parameter. Data 1. Looking through the data list, don't see engine oil pressure. Snap-on, we need a keyword search. I'll look around. So we're underneath the truck doing a visual. I did disconnect and clean the battery cables, and hoping that would reset something. And turn the front drive shaft, so it's currently in two-wheel drive, or at least the front axle is not locked up. There's the axle disconnect switch, or disconnect actuator. And there's a connector up here. That looks okay. I don't see any damaged wires, and I don't see anything physically back here. A little bit of an oil leak from the front output shaft seal, but that's minor. Nothing obvious. So we're going to start by checking the fuses for this thing. There is zero help when it comes to diagnosing this thing as far as a scanner is concerned. The scanner doesn't help you. It's all pinpoint testing. So the fuse for the four-wheel drive is a 20 amp fuse. Bottom left corner, the fuse panel here. This 20 amp right here. And that tests good. So no luck so far. I see there's a bunch of wiring harnesses, cover missing off of here. I don't know what's going on with this mess. So looking at this transfer case shift actuator, pins 1 and 2 are the motor. I have put power and ground to the motor, and I've actually got it in four-wheel drive now. So the motor runs, the front axle is locked. So I'm concerned about these switches. So there are 3 switches in the motor and 2 detection switches on the back of the transfer case. 1, 2. They're all pull-down circuits, so I suspect they'll all have the same voltage on them. So if I disconnect that 6-wire plug, Pin 4, the white and black wire, is a ground. So I should have 0 volts on that wire, and then I should have a voltage potential on the other 3 wires. So we're going to do that first and foremost. Okay, so I'm going to back pin 4, which is the white and black wire. I've got the key on, battery charger on it, and it reads 0.01. So we don't have a ground problem. Let's see what we got on this wire. We got to change the voltage potential. Looks like 12 volts. 11 volts on the black-red wire. $11 volts on the black-white wire. And 11 volts on the third wire. Now I don't imagine all 3 of those switches change state at the same time. It would be nice if they had a chart that said, you know, when it's in 4-wheel drive, switch 1 is grounded. But I couldn't find that chart, mind you. I haven't looked extensively. I'm gonna test these 2 switches here. Let's test this one. I'm sliding the pin down between the seal. Okay, that wire is 13 volts. And this one is 0. So I need to put power and ground to this motor and see that the switches change state. So I'm going to set it up. So I put power to pin 2 and ground to pin 1, and the transfer case motor runs, and now that switch that I'm on changed state. I'm going to reverse the polarity. So I'm going to put power to pin 2 and ground to pin 1. Now it's not running. Let's try to go back the other way. Now the motor doesn't run. It ran the first couple of times. It's not, it's in 2-wheel drive now, but the front axle is locked. But it's not running, so this motor is defective. Power and ground and reverse polarity, it should run the opposite direction. Let me double check my pins. Green and yellow. Green and yellow. So that switch did change state. Let's check this one, see what it's in now. So they're both at 12 volts now, but the motor doesn't want to run the other direction now. So it needs this actuator. Okay. So when I plug this connector back in, because I had it unplugged and I had a jumper in pin 1 and 2, which is the motor, the front axle unlocked now, so it is in 2-wheel drive now. so I can turn the front shaft. So the axle actuator is working, but now when I put power and ground and reverse polarity on this motor, it doesn't run. Yet the other day when I did it, it ran. Mind you, it didn't sound smooth. So we're going to get an actuator for this. Technically, I believe you're supposed to take the transfer case apart to change this, but I think we can just change the electric motor portion of it. Something about a vent on here or a hose on here that allows moisture inside of it. This switch was 12 volts in two-wheel drive, and this switch was 12 volts in two-wheel drive, but in four-wheel drive, and I'm not sure if it was 4 low or not, the back switch, the one closest to the front of the truck, this one here, was at 0, and I ran the motor and it switched. So I'm pretty sure the switches are fine, it's just the motor's failed. So as you can see, the oil pressure gauge is working now. I replaced the sending unit by the oil filter. I measured the resistance of it and it was infinite, and that's not right. I also figured out that low resistance makes the gauge read high oil pressure. So if you ground the wire, it makes the gauge go to high, and if the wire is open, it goes to low. So the sending unit fixed the oil pressure gauge. Well, I almost fell over when I saw the price of this transfer case motor. $3,504 retail. I thought it was a typo. So I went on Rock Auto. Transfer case motor, never Standard Motor Products, TCM 117, 1,382 Canadian. Now this is a retail price. My price is like $1,800, but still, that's ridiculous for a transfer case motor. So I'm going to talk this over with the customer, and maybe we'll see if we can find a previously enjoyed one. So we're back working on this Tundra. We're going to attempt to fix the four-wheel drive today. I've got a new transfer case motor, and it comes with the entire shaft. You're supposed to disassemble the entire transfer case to do this. Purchased this on Amazon. Yes, I know it's Amazon, made in China, but isn't everything? And considerably cheaper, like 250 bucks, including shipping. So we're going to take the motor off of this one and have a look inside. And we're just going to switch the motor out. So I was concerned about them breaking. I see this housing is cracked here. I put some penetrating fluid on this bottom bolt and heated the aluminum housing with a propane torch, and it came loose. The other two bolts go into blind holes, so they're not too bad. So let's continue. So there's the motor off. It was under a considerable amount of tension. Now looking in the motor here at the switch plate, and you can see some green corrosion on it. The housing is cracked on this side here, and this vent tube here is split, so we're going to have to fix that as well. So we're going to clean these contacts up here and replace the motor from this new assembly. So this replacement motor looks the same, but it didn't come with an O-ring seal in here. There was a seal in here, and it wasn't sealed, so it's not made to the same specifications. Looks the same otherwise. I've cleaned the contacts up there, and I've repositioned the motor in the same position as this one was when I took it off. Not that I don't think it matters, because the motor is not timed. Now it's in four-wheel drive now. So let's put this on. I'm going to put some dielectric grease in there, or white lithium grease. So there's the motor installed. I just trimmed a ½ an inch off that hose. The rest of the hose is good. Dielectric grease on the connector. Oh, and by the way, that seal was in there. It had fallen on the floor when I pulled the motor off. I didn't notice, I dropped it. So I put the new seal in. So it's in four-wheel drive now. So I'm expecting the front axle actuator to lock up when I turn the key on. So I've got the vehicle running. It's in two-wheel drive, it's in park. It's See, the gear shift indicator's not working. I wonder if that's going to affect the transfer case. Works in reverse, but doesn't work in park. Works in neutral. Let's try switching. Four-wheel drive high light is flashing now. Before we had full high and low flashing, but it's not going into four-wheel drive. Wonder if I manually have to put it in four-wheel drive. I wonder if it has something to do with this gear shift indicator. I just noticed that now. No, it was working in park. I changed one of those manual switches on the side of the transmission before. Okay, I'm going to run the motor into 4 high. Shut the key off and turned the key back on, and it went into 4 high. I'm pretty sure it's in 4 high right now. Let's try it. Got the wheels off the ground. Yeah. I wonder if this gear shift indicator is probably caught solid light on now. Let's go 2 high. Let's put it 4 high. Now it's working. That's strange. I'm going to look into that gear shift indicator problem. I'm sure that'll affect 4 low because it has to see the neutral position. To go into 4 low. But 4-wheel drive is working now. So it definitely needed a motor, but those contacts inside the motor are pretty green corroded as well. So the gear shift indicator uses conventional bulbs by looking at it, which is a problem. So it could be just burnt out bulbs. She uses the same mode selector switch, park neutral safety switch on the side of the transmission that the engine control computer does. So I'm going to scan it to see if there's any fault codes related to this, and we should be able to see the status of it. I plugged the scanner in, but there's no power at the DLC, so I got to check for a burnt fuse. So it seems to me I had this problem before. You can plug in the DLC cable backwards, so that puts the pins in the wrong orientation. Normally you can't plug in that trapezoid style connector the wrong way, but apparently on this one you can. So I'm going into transmission data, and I'm going to check for codes, because theoretically we'd have a transmission range code if we have a problem with that. Survey says key is on. Current codes, no codes. I did this before, I believe, because I was wondering if the transfer case was scannable, and it's not. So let's look at data. I think just got burnt out bulbs in the dash. Which would make sense. Come on, you can do it. Okay. Reverse off, solenoid low, shift first. CTP switch, park neutral position switch. That's all it's got. And it says park neutral is on in park. Let's see what happens when I shift it to reverse. That's reverse. That's neutral. That's drive. So the gear shift indicator is working on the input to the ECM for transmission controls. So I'm going to call burnt out bulbs in the dash. And that's it for now. Let's take this thing for a road test, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay.